Let's talk about eating disorders in athletes. So why am I even talking about this? I'm actually really fascinated by the integration between nutrition, health, exercise performance, and sort of how all these things work together. And that's really actually why I got into this whole plant-based nutrition and eventually got interested in starting Thought for Food and all these things because, quick little story, background, I've talked about this on the podcast, but I haven't really talked about this on the YouTube channel. Is when I was racing at a very high level as a bike racer a few years ago. I was on this really high level domestic elite team. We were the #1 ranked amateur team in the country. And I was the young guy on the team, youngest guy. I was racing with all these older guys. We were racing in the pro peloton. And I just got too obsessed. I had too much pressure, both externally and internally. And it kind of caught up to me in a very negative way. I started to restrict really significantly my food intake while at the same time, training upwards of 30 hours a week on the bike. I took a semester off of school to go train in Arizona during the winter. And I lost a lot of weight in a very unhealthy way, and I got really sick, and that's sort of what stimulated me to rethink a lot of things with nutrition. Boom, here we are. Got really interested in plant-based living. I mean, I don't really consider that to be an eating disorder, but it was definitely disordered eating habits were a significant part of that, and it really has become something somewhat of an interest to me to kind of shift the paradigm within sport, change the culture, change the awareness about nutrition for athletes, and hopefully do even a small part to eliminate eating disorders in athletes, because it's such an important topic. It's something that isn't talked about enough, and it's a lot more prevalent than I think we all think. And so in this video, I just wanted to give my 2 cents about the topic and hopefully offer you some an area to kind of launch into conversation and to think about. So kind of first things first, I want to talk about the differences between men and women. So obviously women are sort of the focus and sort of this thought about eating disorders. As soon as you hear eating disorders, you think of women, but it's actually extremely prevalent in males. And I think there's just a big difference there between the culture and the perception about eating disorders. And obviously in women, it can be a lot more of a significant physiological damage. So you can shut off your reproductive system. You can lose your period, called amenorrhea, and that can cause a lot of other issues, which I'm going to talk about. But then with guys, again, you can also lose a lot of sexual function. You can lose body mass, body muscle, and just obviously all of these for both men and women is going to cause a decrease in performance when you're significantly restricting your energy intake and you're training super hard, and you just it's just bad news, and it can become very negative. So with women in particular, there is this thing called the female athlete triad, and a lot of it does apply to men, but notably the female athlete triad is characterized by a loss of the menstrual cycle, or athletic amenorrhea. But it kind of starts, it's a triangle, so it kind of starts with disordered eating, or a serious reduction in energy availability, meaning the amount of energy or calories available to you, after your exercise and after you eat, basically. And this can lead to, if you have a energy availability of less than 30 calories per kilogram of lean body mass. I'm going to get into that in a little bit, but basically if you're below a certain threshold, you can potentially lead to athletic amenorrhea, because your body is starving itself of calories and there's not enough energy to go around. The reproductive system requires a lot of energy, a lot of calories, and as a result, it will shut off. And that's why I think a lot of female athletes lose their period. And this can be really detrimental for a variety of reasons, but the third piece of the triangle, the triad, is low bone mineral density, which can evolve into osteopenia, which is like early stage osteoporosis and eventually osteoporosis. So really bad, and it becomes a vicious cycle, and it's actually pretty prevalent. I think, you know, like 6% of all female athletes, you know, surveyed have a semblance of this, and up to like 24% of female athletes, you know, have like up to 2 of the different, you know, 3 points basically. So it's really negative, and I know a lot of friends, a lot of people I know have struggled with at least one, if not more, of these pieces. And so obviously we want to try and avoid that. And I think what the first way to kind of get around that is to develop this awareness around listening to your body, and not the media, because we exist in a world where we have Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, and we're constantly stimulated with, you know, perfect visions of other people. You know, we see all these incredible physiques and athletes and figures out there that are promoting, you know, different fad diets or, you know, weight loss tips, and we sort of emulate them in a lot of ways, and that can be really negative. I mean, I think there's a lot of positives to social media. You can share your story, you can help educate and inspire others, like what we're trying to do, but there can also be a lot of negatives there, because you can get too sucked into that world. You get FOMO, fear of missing out, and you really kind of get sucked into this rabbit hole of restriction and obsession with looking a certain way. And as a result, we sort of lose this ability to listen to our own bodies and understand what we actually need. And I think it's becoming a kind of a lost art, and it's something that we've talked about a lot on Thought for Food, is just kind of getting back to that place about listening to your body. And this is, I think, a really good place to start with preventing and you know, addressing eating disorders in athletes, because we also exist in a world where athletes have access to incredible amounts of data, you know, from our Garmin's to our power meters to, you know, different physiological testing, all of these things that kind of create a kind of an overload of information. We forget to just, you know, check in with ourselves and check in with how we're actually feeling. And so that's kind of a good place to start. But let's get back to this triad and the energy availability. So, you know, one thing that I really, you know, took away from my exercise physiology class is that energy availability is the big piece here. It's basically how much energy you have left over after you eat and exercise. So basically an energy availability of less than 30 calories per kilogram of lean body mass has been shown to be the threshold where, you know, serious negative health effects can occur as a result of eating disorders. And again, this is also potentially, it can also be unintentional or intentional. So a lot of athletes just struggle to get enough calories, which I'm going to talk about. But so, for example, if you're like a female athlete with 50 kilograms of lean body mass, this is important. Lean body mass is what requires the most energy, so it's important to look at it from that perspective. So if you have 50 kilograms of, you know, fat-free mass, then you'll require about an extra 1,500 calories a day to remain above this threshold for negative effects. So if you're burning like 1,000 calories during, you know, exercise or during that day, you'll need to consume at least 2,500 calories. And so, you know, I think it's easy to kind of focus on eating as little calories as possible, focus on restriction, and in order to look a certain way or perform at a certain level. You know, we see, I mean, especially in endurance athletes, runners, cyclists, swimmers and stuff, you know, a real focus on a super lean physique, super high performance. I mean, that's what happened to me. I was a climber, you know, and so I really wanted to be as light as possible to perform at as high of a level as I could. And so I restricted calories while training super hard, obviously backfired, and that just doesn't work. So, I have kind of like 3 main, you know, kind of takeaways here on what we should do about this. Number 1, food should be viewed as fuel. So I want to shift the paradigm towards, you know, using nutrition as a weapon. Like, it is a serious performance enhancer and a multifunctional tool that really improves performance, it improves longevity, overall health. And I want more mindfulness to be exhibited with food in terms of compassion towards our planet, towards ourselves, and towards other animals on this planet, of course. And so that's why I promote a plant-based diet. Number 2, self-awareness and mindfulness around exercise and nutrition. This kind of comes back to social media awareness and mindfulness, and listening to your body. So, you know, something that I try to do is really check in with myself and, you know, before and after a training session say, hey, how do I feel right now? You know, just subjectively, and, you know, not looking at my power meter, my Garmin, and really being honest. Like even today I went for a ski and I felt awful. So I just decided to cut the workout a little bit short and go home and rest. And so, you know, if you're hungry, eat. If you're satisfied, stop eating. And so, you know, you have to really kind of get into this flow of listening to your body, and mindfulness practice, meditation practice can really help with this. Number 3 is nutrition education, and that's like what, you know, my main passion is educating you guys and educating the public and other athletes about the power of nutrition, because I think a lot of athletes sort of just think that they can get away with eating whatever, and in a lot of instances they can. And so we have to get to a spot where nutrition education is a real integral part of athletes' kind of education and training, because it is another tool in the tool belt of training. You know, we spend so much time out on the trails or out on the road, you know, focusing on really structured training. We get coaches, we get the best equipment, and food and nutrition should be the same. And so, you know, adopting this within the sport and shifting this our culture away from this obsession with calories and arbitrary numbers, and focus more on you know, how we're feeling and what nutrition can actually do and how it affects the world around us, zooming out and looking at nutrition from a more holistic approach, and a more, you know, macro scale approach. No, not those macros. This is just something that I'm really passionate about, and something that I want to, you know, continue to strive to and focus on, because athletes can really benefit from, you know, optimal nutrition. And this is why, you know, I think plant-based nutrition is the ultimate, because it has been shown to, you know, benefit performance. Is it the best diet for athletes? Maybe not. We don't have enough research to support that, but there are incredible, you know, athletes from all different sports thriving on a plant-based diet. We know it reduces inflammation and improves recovery time, and you know, you can get enough calories, you can get enough protein on a plant-based diet, but as a result, you know, we do have to eat, you know, enough calories on a plant-based diet. And I know that I said, you know, we have to stop obsessing about calories, but the fact is a plant-based diet is very low in calories, and, you know, higher in volume and nutrients compared to a standard diet that a lot of athletes are on. And so we've talked about this before. We wrote about it in our protein book, that basically you have to really focus on caloric density, and, you know, especially if you're an athlete that has come from an eating disorder past or struggles with your relationship with food, it can be really difficult to get over that hurdle. You know, you may be really motivated to get your nutrition and health and performance in check, but it still can be really mentally hard and physically hard to adopt a plant-based diet and, you know, be at your same level because of this calorie density thing. And so there's a lot of different, you know, ways to do that. I'm not going to talk about that now, but basically you just need to eat a lot more food, and that's very hard for people that have had eating disorder pasts. And so those are kind of top 3 tips. And so this is kind of, you know, my thoughts on eating disorders in athletes. But I want to stimulate this conversation with you guys, and, you know, continue this, and hopefully, you know, start to kind of create more of a culture change within sports, because I know we have a lot of athletes that follow us on social media, on YouTube, listen to the podcast, something that we're really passionate about. And so I want to get this conversation going in a bigger scale. So leave a comment below. I want to hear your thoughts, hear what you have to say about the topic. If you've had any, you know, struggles with this, or have had any experience with nutrition as an athlete that you want to share, and let me know if you want to see more videos like this. I'm really excited to talk about this more in depth, and, you know, hopefully do maybe like a series about it on the channel. But I've just been really thinking about it a lot, and wanted to make this quick video. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, like I said, leave a comment, leave a thumbs up, and definitely share this video. If you have someone that that you think would benefit from listening to this, give it a share and subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate it. And of course, go eat some plants, and that'll allow you to do some epic shit. See you guys.